What's the story, guys? It's how did you? Just wanted to do a brief review on Black Widow. I've been hearing an awful lot of contrasting views on it on YouTube, and I just wanted to have my spake on the issue. I actually did mean to go see it last Wednesday because that's when it came out here in Ireland, but I got my second jab of the COVID vaccine and it poleaxed me. I was literally laid up for about 5 days with it. So I only got round to seeing it on the Monday, and I thought it was great. I'll be honest with you, it's a solid 7.5 out of 10. I was very worried about it though, because there was an awful lot of articles trying to link it to #MeToo and trying to frame it as some form of feminist movie. I presume if you actually really did a deep dive into it, you could come up with those opinions. But just from a normie's point of view, if you're just going to say this, it's just a good espionage type film. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, don't get me wrong. And I mean, the whole last act kind of falls apart because there's a thing going on with Marvel films at the moment where they're falling prey of the formula. And what I mean by that is that they're all starting to be the same. There's the same kind of goofy humour that they keep trying to inject into these things, which doesn't really belong in Black Widow. I mean, there was only really one joke in this film that made me laugh, and that was the bit with the helicopter when it fell out of the sky. Everything else seemed kind of forced. I mean, there's a bit where they were talking about, there was a joke about them having their periods or something from Red Guardian. And then they went into this really long, involved bit about having their uteruses taken out, which, you know, maybe it's funny to some people, but that was the thing that in, you know, Age of Ultron and Avengers 2 was something that really upset Natasha. So it really kind of jarred with how we know she feels about having been forcibly sterilised, and to just flip over like this, it just doesn't seem to suit the character. And like I said, just general trends that you see now across all these films. Like the last act is a big CGI nightmare that doesn't really need to happen, because Black Widow's more of a Daredevil level character than like the Avengers. So to see her, you know, falling out of the sky and fighting Taskmaster on wreckage of a falling sky fortress just doesn't seem to suit the character. I mean, I think a more pared back realistic approach would have been more fun. It's also starting to see some of this stuff from the TV shows kind of creeping in. I know this film is really old. It should have been released about 2 years ago. So maybe it's kind of escaped the worst vagaries of that because, you know, like it was so far back. But if you look at things like Loki isn't the star of his own show. I mean, it's really Sylvie in Loki. And in this, you're really looking at Scarlet Witch's sister, Yelena. And I mean, it's obviously, you know, they're setting her up to be the next Black Widow in whatever future movie they're going to go down the road with. So there's a kind of a feeling that she's getting shortchanged in her own film too. But it's not as bad as, like I said, with Loki. So, I mean, it still works out to be a very enjoyable experience. I think as well as that, you're not getting the story you want. I mean, a lot of people wanted to see, you know, the Budapest story where she meets Hawkeye. You're not getting that. It's not really much of an origin story at all. And it's got much more in common with, say, Winter Soldier. Like I said, the whole last act is almost beat for beat what happened with Winter Soldier, with Steve fighting on the helicarrier that was falling down. You've got Black Widow fighting on the Red Room as it's falling down. There's also some kind of tonal inconsistencies. Like if you look at the opening of the film, it's very strong. I mean, like if you look at the family unit with Red Guardian, Melina, and the two girls, it really does feel like a kind of a Bourne type film as they're trying to escape from the authorities as they're coming for them. But later on, when you run into Guardian, Red Guardian, he seems to be a bit of a moron. And he's played as kind of a meathead who's been locked up in prison for 20 years. Now, maybe they've cut something where they said it was the effect of the super soldier for him, because he is super powered. I mean, there's a scene in the beginning where he throws something fucking the size of a car out of the way of the plane that they were going to fly out on. So maybe there could be some sort of detrimental mental effects on him or something down the road, but that's never pointed out. So, you know, it's left to yourself to figure it out. I mean, I could be reaching there. It could quite simply be that they just want to take a dig at men, which is what's been going on an awful lot in the Marvel universe. And indeed, if I'd love, like I said, going back to the #MeToo stuff, the villain is basically a very, like Dreykov, is basically a thinly veiled Harvey Weinstein insert. I've no problem with that, to be brutally honest with you, because he's the villain. You know, like if somebody's going to be a misogynistic, you know, monstrous git who thinks all women are trash and just to be used for his own purposes, like I said, he's the villain. He's supposed to be a bad guy. You're not meant to like him, so that's well fine with me. Like I said, the other thing is something to do with the predictability and stuff. I mean, Taskmaster turning out to be Dreykov's daughter didn't surprise anyone. You know, like, I mean, the only thing that actually surprised me is apparently they CGI'd the girl's head onto a bloke's body. I always thought that was actually a girl's body. Taskmaster didn't look buff to me in this film. And we know with the whole modern era, you can't have a woman fight, you know, or get beaten by a man. So therefore, you knew it was going to be a woman that she was going to be facing. But besides all that, I have to commend the film. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. It's a good little espionage kind of thriller type thing. The bad guy's plan actually makes sense. You know, like, I mean, she kind of lambasts him towards the end. That was really a ruse just to get him to attack her. You know, like, and essentially falls into the category of a bit of a Zemo type. He's a spider in the web who, manipulates from the backers. He has his legions of widows that he has out there that have compromised peoples in positions of power, and he's basically trying to take over the world surreptitiously. So I mean, it looked like it'd fucking work. So we actually do have a situation here where we've got a bad guy in the Marvel Universe that's actually worth his salt. The action sequences are done well. The composition, the production values, the costumes, all does up nicely. So I mean, like, I can't fault any of that. Like I said, I went in there. It's a 2-hour, 20-minute film. Flew by for me, so I had a really good time with this. So like, I know a lot of people are giving out online about sort of stuff about it. I can't see it. Like I said, just going in as somebody who wanted to chomp the popcorn, sit there and have a good time. Black Widow delivered for me. And as I was saying in, I think it was Yellow Flash's video, I just did a comment on one of his videos that when I tried to actually go see this before I got the job, everything was booked out. I mean, like, this thing was like, there's some shows I couldn't even see because it wouldn't come up because you couldn't access it anymore. Everything else, you had about 2 or 3 seats left, and it was about 15 shows from that day. So there's a huge amount of demand for this. So I'm not surprised in the least that its last figure I checked out took in 80 million. I'd well believe that. I think Black Widow is going to do maybe about 700, 800 million altogether, which is fantastic considering we're talking about COOF period earnings. I'm not surprised at all that it's doing so well because it is actually a very enjoyable film. And to be honest with you, this and Doctor Strange are pretty much the only ones I'm really interested in. So I see it myself as not being alone in that. So I'm not surprised that everyone else is turning up for these films. The proof in the pudding and where they're going to go with the MCU from now on is how you're going to see Marvels be accepted in Eternals and Shang-Chi. Like that's going to be the real question mark about where they're going with the new pivot that the MCU decided to go in. Because I'll be honest with you, since Endgame, I'm not that optimistic. I don't really see a lot of things I'm looking forward to. I'm worried about what they're going to do with the X-Men. To be honest with you, the Fantastic Four, I think it's going to be another train wreck. I think they're just going to make a film just to keep the rights to it. Although considering that was a situation Fox was in, I'm not even sure if that applies anymore. So yeah, just wanted to get my 2 cents out there for you to see. I enjoyed it. Like I said, solid 7.5, 8 or 10, perfectly enjoyable popcorn muncher. Good send off for Nat. Like Scarlett Johansson's a good actress. Like, there's a good cast in this. Like, they're all competently acted. You can see the creep of the more worrying stuff that the MCU's direction is starting to get into. But right now, it's still pretty much in line with what they were doing. So I reckon it's worth a while to go see, and I reckon you have a good time. So there you go, lads. That's my mini review of Black Widow. I enjoyed it. Let us know what you think about it, and like and subscribe.